How did you first get in to Smoky Mountain with Jim Cornette?
Well, after I had bamboozled my way into wrestling by recording my my taped in a kitchen uh, promo audition tape and sent it to Gene Anderson, which I'd actually taped it over a commercially produced porno tape so that they would
Jesus.
actually look at it. um, yeah, I mean, I'd been sending tapes to promoters. I mean, I'd never even been in a ring, right? Um, but so nobody would write me back or even return my calls, or if I did call them, they'd hang up. But once I put that same obscene promo about 15 minutes into a commercially produced porno tape, complete with the slipcase and everything, right? Lo and behold, they called me back. Gene Anderson called me, and I got some phone numbers. And among the phone numbers I got was Jim Cornette. But anyhow, I that was probably in 1989. So for a couple of maybe 3 years, then I'm working my way slowly up the shit shows, and I finally got one of the numbers that Gene Anderson gave me, led me to South Atlantic Pro Wrestling, where I actually got on television for the first time. And that actually gave me a loop. So instead of sending shit that was recorded in a car dealership lot or something somewhere or under a tree, I actually had something with a little production value where I was being interviewed by Bob Caudle. And I put that on a tape and I sent it to Cornette. And I don't know how, for some reason, I'm thinking it was about a year before I heard from him. But I came home from work one day and my stepmother said, yeah, you got a phone call from a Jim Cornette. And I called him up and he said, Daryl Van Horne, it's Jim Cornette. Hey, got something we could use you for? And he says, he tells me, it's Prince Karras. Don't laugh. It's Prince Karras, the mummy. And I said, you mean the mummy like Boris Karloff? And he goes, yes, exactly. Well, that didn't bother. Well, first of all, I was talking to Jim Cornette. So, I don't care what he would have told me to do. I would have done it.
Right,
Second of all,
right.
because I was a monster mark when I was a kid. I used to get Famous Monsters magazine, and my uncles and shit would give me their old 1950s Tales from the Crypt comics and all that. And I'd get in trouble running around on the schoolyard acting like a mummy or Frankenstein or whatever. And then he told me that he wanted me to wear a fez, and I said, you mean like the Grand Wizard used to do when he was Abdullah Farouk with the Sheik? And he said, yeah, absolutely. I'm in. So he told me where to buy a fez from, and I ordered the thing. And then, I did a little studying on the Mummy movie and what. I had no idea how they were going to work it. But in the meantime, because I had, when you're doing indie wrestling, the PA system always sucks. So
Oh,
I had,
the
even
shits.
when it sounds like you're going, is what
Yep.
every promo sounds like, especially at the level of shit show wrestling I had been doing. So I really didn't even know what a promo by me would sound like. I didn't have any idea, there was nothing to, no way to really watch myself back on anything. So I had this shitty job in a furniture warehouse, which gave me a lot of time to mumble to myself. And I just started thinking, well, if I really want to make a splash, how can I take the silly shit about a mummy and try to make it sound like a crazy, demented person is behind it, where there's maybe plausible deniability. Now, one of the problems I had was first of all, at that point, I'd never been in a position to where an interview I would do would spur ticket sales, right? In my mind,
Right.
you just cut promos to cut promos. There's not an end game to it. So when I showed up and did my debut promo, which I had at that point, there were probably 4 or 5 different ways I was going to go with it. When I came out and did the debut one, popped a wheelie, live, everything was live, one take. There were no retakes at all. And you were in front of a live audience. And I got to the back, and the thing was, when I listened to it played back on your show, because I'd forgotten how it went, I thought to myself, wow, that really is different compared to what you're hearing here, Not saying whether it was good or bad, but it's certainly something different. But I would get out there, and I was so nervous. I would go into a zone, and best way I can describe it is it's like you're peeking through the peephole in a hotel door. I get like a tunnel vision, and I couldn't remember a fucking thing I said until the show would air. Until the show aired a week or two later, and thankfully we had a friend that had a satellite dish, so we could pick it up on whatever network carried it on satellite. But I got to the back, and nobody knew who I was at all, and except Bob Caudle, who maybe, because he'd interviewed me a couple years before. But yeah, everybody was like, wow, why aren't you working for Dusty? So I started, thinking that was hot shit. And I waited until the sheets came out, because again, there's no internet. So you have to wait a week or two for the news to cycle through the sheets. And as I'm reading the reviews, people are kind of popping for what I'm saying. And Cornette hasn't called me and fired me or anything, and hasn't said there's any problems. So I just doubled down and just, kept trying to do that. And one thing is, now, of course, I probably would never try to do anything like that on TV. You understand, the censors and whatnot, but everything I did flew under the radar. And it was just a matter of me kind of, because I didn't understand wrestling, I was popping myself, like, what can I get away with on TV? And popping my friends, what 5 or 6 of us that would sit around after I finally got my hands on a tape a week or two later, and waiting to see if I could pop the guys in the sheets. I was that fucking clueless. I just didn't know what I was doing. But Cornette let me get away with a lot of shit, and that's kind of where it started.